thanks for joining us today. We're honored to have a good friend of mine with us, Mr. Bill Allen. And Mr. Bill, I'm going to tell you a little more about him. Mr. Bill has a great story to tell, and we're excited about you being with us and sharing with us today. Mr. Bill and his wife, Miss Ida Lee, we went to West Tennessee a couple months ago, and we're going to go speak to a group in Middle and East Tennessee, and then the COVID kind of stopped that. But when I introduced Mr. Bill there, I said I brought with me one of the nicest, most polite, most loved people in Rutherford County, and her husband is going to speak to us today. So that's true. We're glad Miss Ida Lee is with us today, and we're so glad that she's here with us. And Mr. Bill, we're glad to have you with us. Mr. Bill, you're 95, I believe. Is that correct?
95 next Monday.
95 next Monday. We're filming this in May. So coming up in May, you'll be 95.
18th of May, I'll be 95.
That is fantastic, and still in great shape. And you're going to find he is a tremendous storyteller and a tremendous memory, and has a great story to share with us. Mr. Bill is a veteran of World War II, and we're going to talk about the events that occurred in his life that got you into the military, and then the events around D-Day that you were involved in. Mr. Bill came back here. He worked at Ransom's Feed Mill, for those of you who have been around a long time. But we know you most of all for working for Murfreesboro Electric for so many years. And if you have been to Woodfin's Funeral Home in Murfreesboro, Mr. Bill has greeted you. You worked in the funeral business off and on for 50 plus years,
That's
Mr. Bill.
65 years.
65 years, and just in the last year or two, threw the keys. You didn't throw the key. You tried to throw the keys in, they wouldn't let you, right? Told you keep the keys if you wanted to come back.
That's right.
So at Woodfin's, and an avid golfer and very involved in the Murfreesboro Old Fort Golf and the Golf Authority. I know you've been involved in that for years and years, and you and Miss Ida Lee have two daughters, and your family has been here. And again, Mr. Bill is a great friend of mine, and I'm just honored that you came to share some time with us. And we just tell us about yourself, and then tell us about the events of your life in World War II.
Thank you so much, Tim. You've added a lot of nice things since our trip to West Tennessee, and I appreciate all of them very much. I usually recognize veterans when I talk, but I don't believe there's any World War II veterans here today. But if anyone's listening in that is a veteran, thank you for what you've done. It took us all to win and to preserve the freedom that we have today. It doesn't matter what your job was, it was necessary. And thank you to all veterans that might be listening. I usually start my story on May the 18th, 1943. Got up that morning, had breakfast with my mother, my father, and my one brother. On up in the morning, I went to town. We only lived 8 or 10 blocks from the square. Walked uptown to loaf around, went by the draft board, registered for the draft. Came home for dinner. Mother had a birthday dinner for me. That afternoon, loafed around. That night I graduated from Central High School. The old building that used to be over Maple Street. We graduated in Cox Memorial, which was across the street, the gym. But the old building burnt the next spring after that. But anyway, I graduated from some 8-10 weeks later. I found myself on a train going to Knoxville, Washington, Baltimore. Stopped just before we left the state of Maryland. Navy base called Bainbridge. If you know anything about that part of the country, it's right up around Port Deposit, there on the Susquehanna River. That was boot camp. Boot camp lasted some 6 or 7 weeks. For some, boot camp was pretty tough, the physical part of it. All the way through high school, I had played baseball, like this young man over here, basketball, some football, and Mother didn't know about it. But the physical part, I made fine. I think the one thing that really changed my life in boot camp was responsibility. Mother wasn't there to keep my bed clean, keep my clothes washed, the area I lived in clean. They taught you responsibility. If you were supposed to be somewhere at 10 o'clock, you got there at 10 minutes to 10, not 10 minutes after. But boot camp was over. I think, if I remember correctly, there was 120 of us in the camp, in that company. About half went straight to sea. About half got a service school. I was lucky. I got a service school, hospital corps school. But that was also at Bainbridge. That was another 6 or 8 weeks there in corps school. We took courses like anatomy, first aid, minor surgery, medications, hospital procedures, things that would help us in the future. One of the main things that came out of hospital corps school, I think there was 10 of us. They got to know each other, got to be very, very close. I think maybe 4 or 5 of us from Tennessee, 3 or 4 from Georgia, one from Alabama, one from Mississippi. But we all had a lot in common, about the same age, enjoyed the same things, just got to be very, very close. Well, when corps school was over, we all graduated, and as luck would have it, all of us were sent down to the Naval Hospital at Millington, Tennessee, just out of Memphis. We were down there, I guess, 2.5 months, maybe, somewhere between 2 and 3 months. And they cleaned the base, said just about everything they could spare. Toledo Beach, New York, out on Long Island. We were fixing to go across. We checked in sometime middle of the week. On Saturday morning, fell out for inspection. And it was thousands, all Corbin, hospital Corbin. Everything from hospital second class on up to first class pharmacy base. Inspecting officer drove up, got out, made his rounds around each one, got right in front of me and stopped. I thought, what is this world? He said, what is your name? I told him. He said, when did you come on base? I said, last Wednesday or Thursday, whatever it was. He said, you report to the OD shack when the inspection's over in your undressed blues. I said, all right, sir. Went on, finished inspection, got back in the car, left, on the stop he made. Well, I done like I was told. Went back to barracks, changed into my undressed blues, reported to the OD shack. Walked in, the only one in there was an ensign. He happened to be from Nashville. Well, we hit it off very good. What they wanted was someone to work in the shack there. They had a list of everybody and their rate. And what we would do was form in groups of 20. As ships would come available, we'd put a team of 20 on that ship to go across England. Well, I worked out those groups, but that allowed me to keep our group together. But finally the day came when we had got down and we were the next group to leave out. Well, our ship pulled in, we loaded up that morning early, trucks that carried across New York City over into New Jersey, down to Bayonne, New Jersey. We went aboard LST 523. Now, LST stands for Landing Ship Tanker. It's not a fighting ship. It's a ship for carrying in supplies and troops, things of that type. It's only 328 feet long, just a little bit longer than a football field, 50 feet wide. But we did have guns to protect ourselves, but we were not considered a fighting ship at all. But we went aboard, and within an hour after we went aboard, we were underway. Back through New York City, up the coast, stopped in Boston for a couple of days, pulled out, went on up to Halifax, Nova Scotia. We were there something like a week, maybe 10 days. That's where the main convoy was formed to go across. We pulled out one morning, as far as you can see in front of you and behind us. We built up on the top of a swell, and you could see it looked like forever. And as far as you could see both ways, it was ships. It was everything. It was destroyers. We didn't have any battleships, but we had all kinds of fighting ships to protect us. Even at that, every so often, we'd lose a ship. Submarine, German sub would come in and pick one off. But the first Sunday out, one of the boys, it might have been Ed Phillips, I'm not positive, but sound like maybe Ed. But Ed said, you know, said, I miss going to church on Sunday. Said, I've always gone to church on Sunday, and we didn't have chaplain, we didn't have chapel, no religious facilities whatsoever. But we didn't have any recreational facilities either, so they wasn't showing partiality. Everything on the ship was necessary, but we just didn't have any spare room. So one of the other boys said, well, I have a little New Testament here. So let's just sit down here on the bunk and read a few scriptures. There was 3 or 4 others joined us. I guess it lasted 5, 10 minutes at the very most. That was our worship service. But the next Sunday, 3 or 4 more joined us. We built up where I guess most we ever had maybe about a dozen, 15 maybe, but I doubt that many. But anyway, 4 weeks later, we landed in Plymouth, England. Plymouth had been bombed practically off the face of the earth. I'd never seen such destruction in my life. But we pulled into port there. Next morning, they started coming in to unload. We had loaded very heavy with supplies. They started unloading. Well, the medics, we left the ship for a couple of weeks, went to a chemical warfare school in a little town called Fowey. All this was down on the southern coast of England. And we went to chemical warfare school. The Germans had used gas in World War I, and we didn't know what to expect it to. And so that's the reason we went to. In the 2 weeks, we were back to the ship. Well, we were in several different ports, Falmouth, Weymouth, most of those towns that had ports along the southern coast of England there. But the medics, we were working, stocking first aid cabinets, sterilizing all of our instruments. At that time, we sterilized everything. We didn't have any throwaways like they do today. But we had everything set up. I think 2 different occasions, I believe it was, we loaded up, the Army did. We'd go out into the channel and turn around and come back. Just sort of practice loading. But one day we loaded up and didn't go out. But we suspected something. But that night we pulled out and we was headed for Normandy. That was D-Day. We got in there on up in the day sometime. Well, the beach hadn't been secured at that time. It was still terrible sights taking place right there on the beach. We had to unload in 3 or 4 feet of water. We let our bow doors down, the ramp down, started unloading. I saw foot troops with those heavy packs go down that ramp, lose their footing, and drown right there at the end of the ramp. Tanks and jeeps and other equipment kept unloading. It was like a factory. You didn't stop for anything. You kept moving. I saw foot troops that got off, made it into the beach, 8 or 10 steps, step on a landmine, life was over. Snipers get them. Terrible sights. But that was war. We loaded casualties all night, that night. Early the next morning, we headed back to England with a load of casualties. Well, that night, there's a bunch of boys became men for what we saw. We made 3 trips in, all about the same success story, no problems. Well, but our 4th trip, fighting was way in. We thought we were safe. We went in, got in there. You had to hit the beach when the tide was in. And then when the tide went out, we could unload on dry land and load back. But when the tide came back in, you had to be ready to move out. So we got in there around, it must have been 11:30. But the tide didn't come in until about a little after 1. So we anchored out 5 miles off the coast of Omaha Beach. Had lunch. I got through. I came out on the upper deck, top deck, walking down the rail there. 2 soldiers standing there. Struck up conversation with them. We talked for, 5, 10 minutes. One of them said, "This is our truck right here. Let's just get in and sit down." So we did. But in the meantime, we had got word to horse anchor. We did and started up, was turning and headed our position to go into the beach. We hadn't much more than got straightened to go in until the worst noise you ever heard, boom. Well, we knew that something had happened. Debris began falling down on us. That truck saved our lives. Maybe from death or certainly from injuries anyway. But after the debris quit falling, we got out. I never saw them anymore. I don't know whether they made it or not. But I saw shipmates laying there, body parts blown off. Saw men laying there crying, howling, "Please help, please help." Here come a swell, wash right out to sea, never be seen again, them crying for help. Tim, it's hard sights. I stood there and I didn't know. I'm a poor swimmer. I didn't know where to try to swim to my death or stay on the ship or drown with the ship. But the only future I could see was death. I was one of the last ones I know to leave, maybe the last one. But about the last possible chance, I heard somebody holler, "Bill, Bill." I looked out over here on the port side. I guess 100, 125 feet, with this boy from Mississippi, Jack Hamlin, a medic. He had managed to get a life raft. He said, "You can't swim out here." He said, "It's too rough." He said, "Nobody can swim out here in this stuff." He said, "You stay there, I'll try to get in there to you." Well, he was back in a safe area, but when he come in, if that bow had gone under, he'd have sucked everything in with it. He didn't hesitate. He started paddling and kicking, trying to get to me. He ignored all risk. He got within, I guess, 15, 20 feet of me. I said, "Jack, I can jump that far." And darn it did. But anyway, we got on a life raft and we started trying to leave. There's 4 soldiers in the water there. 2 of them wasn't hurt too bad, but 2 of them was hurt extremely bad. We had to get them out of the water onto the raft. Pretty tough job, but we made it. Then we began trying to get back into a safe area. Oh, that raft was just, never had been a ride in Carnival, any rougher than it was. We had to hold on with one arm and try to hold others. They couldn't with other. I don't know how long we was on that life raft. I usually say about 30 minutes, but it could be 15, 20 minutes one way or the other. But anyway, finally there was a little boat came to us, LCVP, little landing craft. It was used from the boat into the dock, where you couldn't tie up to the dock. You had to anchor out. The water wasn't deep enough. They were supposed to carry about 25, maybe 30 people, about 25 foot long, maybe 10 foot wide. We got in that. They gave us a little bit more protection, but it still rough as it could be. But he hit it into the beach. And he fought those swells, I tell you. He had to be one of the best coxswains that the Navy had, or else we still would have been drowned. But I guess it was probably an hour, I don't know. He fought it. Finally he said, "There's no way I can get you into the beach at the first aid station. Let me see if I can find a ship that'll take you." He worked his way around over to a Liberty ship, Merchant Marine, manned it. The old skipper was standing up there on the fantail. He said, "Will you take any survivors?" He said, "I'll take all you bring me." With that, they dropped a wire basket over the side with a rope on each end of it, and we would load a soldier in the basket. They'd pull him up when the swell would come in. Well, for some reason, and I still don't know why, but when they got down to Jack myself, they took the basket away and they dropped a cargo net over the side. Now you know what a cargo net is. Well, when the swell would come up, we still had about a foot jump to catch the bottom of that net. Jack was about my size, small fellow. But we looked at each other and Jack said, "You want to go first or me?" I said, "It doesn't matter, Jack, we got one chance." Well, he said, "I'll go first." Well, we watched when we saw a swell building up. He got ready, he jumped and he made it. Well, I kept watching, and a little bit I saw one building up. I got ready and I jumped. I caught the bottom of that net. I was like a squirrel going up that net. I didn't have a bit of trouble climbing that net.
Mr. Bell, what would have happened if you'd missed the net?
Sudden death.
You'd have been crushed between the boats, wouldn't you? Between the ships.
Down, either been crushed or drowned. That's what I say. You had one chance.
One chance to make it.
But the old skipper, came up to us. He said, you boys going down to Galley there and get you a cup of coffee and something to eat if you want it. So we did. Got a cup of coffee, couldn't swallow. Couldn't swallow, couldn't eat a bite of food. Throat was just completely locked up. We were sitting there mincing around, and he came back, the old skipper came in and laid his hand on our shoulder. He said, you boys have had a terribly hard day today. He said, I've cleaned out a compartment for you right down the passageway there. He said, go down and go to bed. Maybe that'll help you. But we did. We rolled and tumbled. If we closed our eyes, we relived. If we didn't, we still relived everything that happened that day, the sights we had seen. Finally, sometime after I rolled over. Jack said, Bill, you sleep. I said, Jack, I think I'll never go to sleep again. He said, I can't sleep. He said, let's just get up. So we did. We got up, walked around out on the open deck. Back next to the bulkhead there was a little bench. We took our seats on that bench. Black night. Every once in a while, battleships in here behind us go to firing, and they'd fire back over us. We'd sit there and watch the tracer bullets. I got to thinking, why has my life been spared? Guy stepped right over the bunk right there. 18 of us slept in one compartment, 9 on this side, 9 on this side. Bunks was 3 high. Guy slept right there. I'd seen him blown to bits. Guy right over here, he was married. I knew he'd died. Boy slept back here, this boy. He was married, had a child. That child never had a chance to see his father. I thought, why has my life? I'd been raised in Sunday school. God was good. God would take care of you. The sights that I had seen that day and what I had been through, I tell you, it shook my faith. I decided I was an atheist. I couldn't accept what I had been taught. I'd wasted my time in Sunday school. But then I thought, well, was that look at that life raft appeared out there? Good time to be lucky. Well, I'd think of another one. But what let me get in that truck where I wouldn't be crushed to death? I was back and forth, back and forth. Biggest debate, biggest argument I ever had in my life was with myself. Finally, sometime before daylight, on the far side of the world, no chaplain, no minister, no Sunday school teacher, I finally convinced myself that luck hadn't carried me that far. It had to be a power far greater than luck. It was God. Next day was better. We was able to drink a little coffee, eat a little bit. We stayed on that ship, I don't know, something, a little less than a week if I remember correctly. 4 or 5 days, maybe 6. Got a message one day, asked if they had any survivors. They turned our name and service number in and radioed back and for us to have our gear ready at 1 o'clock, 1300. We'd be picked up. Well, we didn't have any gear, we'd lost everything we had, so we was ready to go right then. But they picked us up and carried us to another LST, and I cannot remember that number. But we came back to England then on another LST, went straight to Foy. They had turned it into an R&R camp after we had been there for the chemical warfare school. After we'd been there, I don't know, 5, 6 weeks maybe, Navy had time to try to check on everybody. They came out with a report that out of the 145 Navy personnel that we had aboard ship, 117 had lost their lives. 28 of us got off. But the amazing thing to me, out of those 28 that got off, that 10 of us that had worshiped, 10 or 12 that had worshiped every Sunday morning, every one of us got off. Not without injuries. Some of us hurt pretty serious. But we all got off, and we all survived. Well, after we'd been there, I don't know, 8, 10 weeks, we got orders to come back to States. We'd been taken out of the Navy and put in the Marines. We go into the South Pacific. We came back to States through New York, down to Norfolk. I think maybe the third day we was there, the doctor called us in to examine us. I was one he examined. He checked about half dozen of us. Came out and he said, I've seen all I need to see. He said, I'm giving you 30-day leave. Take off home. Well, we did, knowing that we was going to the South Pacific when we got back. But when we got back, Norfolk was there about a week. Caught the train one night, rode all night. Woke up the next morning, we was in Chicago. Well, I knew all the troop trains went through St. Louis, going both ways. But they met us there, carried us up Great Lakes. He had blocked the orders and sent us to Great Lakes to the Naval Hospital for duty. Well, I stayed there, I guess maybe 6 weeks on night duty. Had a nurse that we couldn't G-haul at all. So I asked for a transfer, went down to St. Louis, stayed down there, about 3 or 4 months. We just had a small dispensary there at that time, but they decided to make it into a small hospital, sent several doctors in and nurses and enlarged, and in the process, I got sent back to Great Lakes, but I went back to what we call main side then, not boot camp. It was attached to boot camp. I was on an indoor rifle range, had a little first aid kit. In case we had an accident, I was to do whatever was necessary. Put on a Band-Aid or call an ambulance or whatever was necessary. But I finished out my time there, the Great Lakes, doing that. Got back home, worked 2 or 3 jobs, ran home there. Finally went to work at Woodman's Chapel. Worked out there about, I guess 3.5 years. Lived there. But that was 24 hours a day, 7 days a week. And I began to get a little tired. So I had a chance to make a change, go to the Murfreesboro Elections Department. I did. Stayed there 32 years, met Ida Lee. We married, had 2 girls. Life was very routine for us. August of 2013, I was home one morning by myself. Ida Lee had gone to church to a watercolor class. Phone rung, and normally I don't answer the phone if she's not there. Not for me, and I'll forget to tell her or get the message mixed up or something, so I just let the answering machine take care of it. But for some reason, I answered the phone that morning. The voice on the other end identified himself as Doug Hamilton with PBS in New York City. I thought, yeah, I'm Donald Duck too. What are you selling? But I didn't. I treated him very decent. He said, were you in the 300th Battalion of the Combat Engineers? I said, no, sir, I was not. I was in the Navy. Oh, you're in the Navy? I said, yes, sir. He said, were you being Chancellor LST 523? I said, I was. He said, were you on it when it was sunk? I said, I was. He said, you're the one I'm looking for. He said, we're making a documentary for the 70th anniversary. We'd like to invite, said, how's your health? I said, well, at that time it was good. He said, you're not on a walker or a stick? I said, no, sir, no. He said, your wife, good health? I said, she's better health than I am. He said, we'd like to invite you back to Normandy for a few days, do some filming and some interviewing. I said, sir, I said, I don't make decisions like that without consulting her. I said, she'll be back this afternoon. He said, I'll call you 11 o'clock tomorrow. And he did, he called back. When she got home, I told her. She would have been ready to left that afternoon. I know. She had tried to get me to go for the 50th anniversary, for the 60th anniversary. I said, everything I had, I lost, left over there. But it could stay, I'm not going back after it. I had no desire to go back. But I had read about our ship, what was left of it, being in the bottom of the channel, and that you could go down and see what was left of it. But that sort of appealed to me. And when I had the opportunity, it changed my mind. He called back the next day, and I told him, I said, we're going to accept your offer. He said, great. But I said, I got one problem. He said, what's that? I said, as long as we're in the States, I don't worry, but I said, going through Paris and if something happened, I would just feel better if I had one of my daughters with us. He said, I understand that. He said, we'll take her too. Well, I said, you've created another problem. He said, what's that? I said, I've got two daughters. He said, well, take them both. So he said, I'm going to turn things over to some lady. Said she works out the itinerary, all the schedule. She'll be in touch with you. Well, I think the next day she called. About a week later, on Saturday, we flew to New York, had a little layover, 2 or 3 hours, caught a plane, flew out of New York, seemed like maybe 5 o'clock Saturday afternoon. Flew all night and got into Paris the next morning. Went to the hotel. They had a lady there that met us. We went to the hotel and slept about noon. She came back. We toured Paris all afternoon. I mean, she knew Paris better than I know Murfreesboro. Next morning, we got up, headed down to Normandy. I guess about a 2.5, 3 hour drive. Headed up to Normandy. But beautiful countryside. The closer we got to Normandy, it's just farmland and beautiful country. Paris couldn't care less whether we was there or not. But Normandy, man, I tell you, they couldn't do enough for you. We got in there, had lunch, met all the feminine crew, I guess about a dozen of them. Had lunch, got through, they said, we would like to spend this afternoon at the American Cemetery. I said, that's fine. We went up on the cliff up there at the cemetery. Tell you, one of the most beautiful places I've ever been. Over 9,000. If I remember correctly, 9,340 some odd, but it was over 9,000 buried there. Every blade of grass was the same level. Trees were trimmed perfectly. you didn't see the first piece of litter on the ground. Just as quiet, wasn't a sound to be heard. One of our doctors, we had 2 doctors, one of our doctors was buried there. We found his grave. We walked around looking at the other graves, ones from Tennessee. And Doug asked me, he said, Bill said, can you describe the contrast between today and Normandy? I said, Doug, it's just about as much contrast as it could be. I said, D-Day, it was death, destruction, noise, guns firing. Just death happened every time you look up. And today, I said, it's peaceful, not a sound. Every once in a while, a bird would land in a tree, sing a few notes for you, fly away. Looked out into the channel, a couple of little, very small little boats out there, fishing boats, I imagine. But everything was just still, quiet, just like God had solved it all. We spent all afternoon there. They found out that something was taking place. They kept the cemetery open 30 extra minutes for people to speak to me. We spent the night at Cherbourg, I believe that's how you pronounce it. Next morning, caught a boat, went down the channel, riding along, beautiful day, water just as calm as it could be. Enjoying a nice boat ride, went by Utah Beach. We got on down there. That's why I began to slow down a little bit. We came to a stop where the cook had fixed some cookies and little finger foods and some punch, and we was enjoying that. And Doug said, Bill said, we're right on top of what's left of your ship now. He said, would you like to go down and see it? I said, sure. He said, we have a little submarine back here on the back, little 3-man submarine. He said, we'll take you down and let you see what's left of your ship. So the pilot and his assistant, this little submarine was 6, maybe 7 feet long and sort of egg shape in the longest direction. But inside it was tight. I mean, 3 of us, the virus like it is today, they would never let us in there. But I had a little shelf about so wide, maybe 4 foot long, I had to lay on. The pilot's assistant was right over there, about this far from it. The pilot was in the back with his legs between us, glass in the front. But we got in from the top, went down, they lifted us over into the water. We started going down, went to the bottom of the English Channel. There's our bow of our ship, about a 45-degree angle, wedged into the sand. We went around and around, up and over it. I saw enough that I was convinced beyond any doubt. Tanks were still chained to the deck. A couple of them had fallen off. I don't know whether the chains weakened from age or got damaged, but a couple of tanks had fallen off, laying there beside. One of our bow doors had fallen off. But other than that, it was just like when I left it. I saw where I had jumped from, saw a lot of sights that I remembered. We kept going around and around, up and over. I thought we'd been down maybe 30 minutes at the very most. I told the pilot, I said, well, I believe we've seen it all. Now, our number on the side had been covered over with algae. I couldn't read it, but I saw enough. I was convinced that it was our ship. I told him, I said, well, I believe we've seen it all. Yes, he said, we've seen it all, but he said, now, this is your trip. We'll stay down as long as you want to stay. Well, I said, I think I'm ready to go up. So we started coming up, got back on the ship. They were awful glad to see us. But great experience. Next day we went out on another ship about that size, but it was a sonar ship. We just rode the channel and looked at the bottom of the channel all the way through. Now, just about all that debris had been cleaned out of that channel, but they're planning on leaving our ship, is my understanding, for anybody that wants to go down and see it. I imagine it's very expensive, but anyway, I went down. But then that last night, we had a big meal. They had pulled all the tables, anything flat in together, and the cook had fixed, I'm sure, what's thought of a southern meal, green beans and potatoes, and had a good meal. I guess the filming crew was about a dozen of us, and the crew for the ship, maybe it was a dozen, maybe a few more than that, because they had about half a dozen divers that went down. But anyway, it must have been 30 of us, I guess, all gathered around talking, and most enjoyable experience, I think. It was close to midnight. We had to be back in Paris the next morning to leave at 8 o'clock. Well, we took off, got back into Paris, I don't know, 2 or 3 o'clock. Went to bed, slept a couple of hours, got up, flew back home, and been back ever since. But a great experience, Ted, but I know that as I tell this story, there's a lot of it will pass off tomorrow, be forgotten. But there's one thing that I usually try to leave one thought, and I ask everybody if they will to remember it as long as you live. There is a God. He's not dead. He's very much alive. He's not inactive. He's just as active as he was in the beginning. It's been a privilege to spend time with you here and tell this story again. And I hope so I will hear it, that it means a lot too. And thank you for the time and the effort that you've gone into prepared for this. And I value your friendship very, very much. Thank you so much.
Thank you, Mr. Bill. I can't tell you what a privilege it is just to be with you, and to be your friend is one of the great privileges of my life. But something you've got to answer for us before I get 10,000 emails. Tell us about the documentary, because PBS filmed the documentary. You're a vital part of that. It's still available today on PBS. You can find that. Get your children, if you're my age, to help you go onto the PBS app or on your television. Well, what's the name of the documentary that they did?
D-Day Sunken Secrets.
D-Day Sunken Secrets. And so I know a lot of folks will want to watch that.
Documentary. About the first hour is what leading up in there is a professor from Kansas University, I believe it was Kansas State, that gave the history. Very, very smart man. Had written a book, and I have a book that a copy of he gave me, autographed it for me. But he leads up to the experience of the beginning of World War II. And then about the beginning of the second half, where I come in, they start interviewing me
So if folks want to get the important part, they can skip through the first hour and get right to you. Is that the?
I didn't say that.
I said that. I said that. Thank you again, Miss Ottilie. Thank you for joining us. When we went to West Tennessee, we got to spend a couple days together and dine together and be together. And that was just such a great time. And I look forward to being able to spend more time with you. Appreciate all you've done in our community. I appreciate you sharing our story. Thank you for our service, for your service to our country. We enjoy the freedom we have because of men like you, and we can't repay you for all that you've done. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Tim.
Thank you, sir. Appreciate you.
Appreciate you.